Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Unpacked Sessions. My name is Shayla, and I am so excited to be here with you all. Make sure you check out the link in the description to get access to my digital journal, Unpacked Sessions Conversations with Yourself. And also make sure you follow my Instagram at Unpacked Sessions. Follow and subscribe. But let's get into this week's episode. So, on today's episode of Unpacked Sessions, we are going to be shifting gears from the last two episodes and focusing in on dating and decentering men and what that means in a year 2026, what that means in modern times, right? So, I've had quite a few conversations recently. One with a really close friend. I've been friends with her since I was in seventh grade. Our meet cute, I guess, is very interesting, but she's one of the longest friends that I've had, and I thoroughly value her friendship. I also had a conversation with a male friend who he was actually one of my first boyfriends ever in sixth grade, but just catching up as adults, and we had a very interesting conversation in which I came to realize, which I'm always realizing, that black women and black men are living totally different lives in a lot of ways. And it's not to say we don't have that kinship connection. It's just to say that even in general, boys and girls, men and women, living two totally different lives. And I think that's where a lot of misunderstandings come from, because we aren't interjecting each into each other's lives, into the culture. You have to be somebody who's just hyper aware of things in order to be well versed in the things women enjoy and the things men enjoy. But that's neither here nor there. And then also, my mom is 30 years older than me. So I'm 27. She's 57. She'll be 58 in March. But talking to her has also highlighted some of the things that I want to talk about in today's episode. So, first things first, right? Social media and Instagram specifically is not a dating app. So, like I said, I spoke with a male friend. We talked for a while just about getting off social media, going off the grid. He's been off social media for a while, and I'm trying to lean towards that, but it is really hard, right? But we talked about how it has really put a damper on the dating life and the dating scene of so many people, and how it can really make it hard to not, or make it easy to stay surface level, right? Because you get on Instagram, you see somebody's pictures, they look good, you look good, y'all start engaging with each other's content, posts, whatever the case may be, y'all link, right? And it may not even be a proper quote unquote date. And a proper date looks different to everybody, but we'll touch on that soon. Y'all will link, and y'all will, prior to linking, y'all will text after getting off Instagram. Y'all maybe a FaceTime a few times, so you feel like you know this person because you're in constant communication with them all the time, but truly you don't really know them. So then y'all link, and then on the first link the expectations are high because y'all have been interacting with each other so much. And a lot of times, I can be honest and speak for myself, you may end up sleeping with them after you linked with them the first time, because you feel like you know them. You feel like you are so close to them. And with that, after, it leaves a lot of gray area and confusion because y'all have taken this big step together without truly knowing each other. And that's how situationships are built, right? Because now I don't really know if this person wants a relationship. We're not having the conversation, we're just going with the flow. We don't even know if we really like the same things. We just know that we both look good, and you feel me, have obviously some things in common to be able to keep the conversations going. But soon the surface level things die down, and then you're left with this feeling of, I really do like this person, but I also feel like the connection or the understanding that we have of each other isn't deep enough for me to pursue them in a way that I want to be pursued. So what does this really mean? It means that we need to get off these apps. And don't get me wrong, the apps that are meant for dating, sure, stay on them. Me personally, it's so easy for a person to pretend to be somebody, through a screen, in my opinion. Instagram specifically is not designed for dating, and somehow we have made it into a dating app. So put the phones down. People need to get out more, commune more, go into the community, meet people at the places that you like to meet or that you like to go, because that is where you're going to find people that actually have things in common with you, right? I say that too because I'm a party girl. I like to go out. I like the club scene. I love to dance. I love good music. Like, I just love those kind of vibes, right? But when I was in therapy, me and my therapist talked about how I meet people at these clubs, at these bars, and then wonder why it doesn't work out, because I'm a multifaceted girl. So me being at the club or doing the party stuff, that's only one piece of who I am. It is not the entirety of who I am. So I'm telling my therapist, I also like museums. I can't even think right now. Museums, libraries, going to the gym, the park, just different stuff, traveling, right? I'm telling her all these things and she's like, but you are constantly meeting people in the club. You are not setting yourself up for success in dating because you're not going to the places that the people that you feel me the people who may also like the club could be in these other places, but you're not really giving it a chance, right? So I think we have to put down the phones and really go outside and not just like club hop, go places where people who have minded ideas as you are at. I say all that to say, as I'm talking to my male friend, he brings up the last person that he dated. And I asked him, I'm like, well, before y'all even got to the point sleeping together and all these things, had y'all talked about like values and, the things that you want in a long-term relationship? And he, I've never had that conversation with somebody. And I believe that too is another reason why we are not having success in dating, because we are looking at social media again, looking at other people's lives and saying, oh, well, they're telling me these are the things that I should have, or these are the things I should value. So these are the things that I'm going to value. These are the things that I'm going to appreciate, right? And it's not to say that you cannot get inspired by other people. You can't learn to love different things or new things that you or may not have been exposed to. But it's to say, at your core, right? You have to understand. Perfect example. I'm going to use me in all these examples, right? If I'm somebody that values marriage, I simply should not be talking to a person, texting a person, seeing or dating or sleeping with a person who does not value marriage if I'm looking for something serious, right? Because that doesn't align with who I am. So while it may be hard, while I may be deeply interested in the person, if our values no longer align, if it stops making sense, you have to be able to move on. You have to. It is so important. If your values do not align, you will save yourself so much time and heartache. Because again, why would I want to force something upon a person or settle for something that I don't really want? It has to make sense for you and nobody else. Don't get on social media and say, oh my God, this girl, she got X, Y, and Z. This guy, he was able to do X, Y, and Z for his girl or whatever. You have to do what works for you and what makes sense to you. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody but you. And it leads me to my next, point. When I was having a conversation with my mom, she's dating right now as a 57-year-old Black woman. And it's very interesting to see how some of these dynamics continue even in older age, of not being able to sit with or stand on the things that you truly value or the things that you truly want, or not being self-aware enough to understand, like, this isn't working for me anymore. Or even the conversation that we had, she's been seeing a guy for like 3 months and he started being like a little flaky. And she was like, well, he wasn't like this in the beginning. 3 months is the beginning, girl. it is still very early for you to, okay, this is not working for me. I need to move on. We had a conversation at dinner the other day. I'm used to this, and that's fine because that's what you require, right? And somebody else might be okay accepting what he can offer. It doesn't make him a bad guy. It doesn't make him a bad person, and it doesn't make you a bad person either for y'all just not aligning, right? You can want all those things and find that in a person who's willing to provide all those things, right? It doesn't have to be this thing or this issue where, you're dealing with somebody and they're unable to meet your needs and you just have to sit there and take. Like, no, it is okay if this person can't meet your needs, and it's also okay that the things that they are able to provide may meet someone else's need, just not yours. Like, it is okay. It's fine. But it's a hard kind of swallow, I think, just because we are so used, okay, well, he checks off all these boxes, or it flows well, or I've been dealing with this person for a certain amount of time, so, I should just stick it out instead of just like, my needs are not being met and I need to move on with my life. Respectfully, it is okay on both ends, men and women. That's my opinion, though. And it goes in again to just the importance of knowing your and what you want and value, especially after you reach a certain age, I guess, or, just overall, because I don't want to put people in a box, right? But it's just so important to know who you are and what you value so that when something no longer aligns, you can just go on. You don't have to stick around. You don't have to put yourself through unnecessary heartache. I think that is the greatest advice that I could give. And it's some advice that I did give my female friend who I've been friends with since 7th grade, of just, you can put yourself out there in the dating world and you can really attract so much, right? But not all attraction is good attraction. And it's so important that when you are dating and putting yourself out there, that you understand who you are and understand what you want, so that nobody else can come into your life and change that so easily, right? So you're not moved so easily. It's just important. And once again, I think it goes deep into this idea of being selfless and the harm that being selfless can, cause. Because if you're constantly pouring from an empty cup, there's nothing left for you. If I'm trying to be everything to everybody, then who am I being to myself, right? And it's nothing wrong with being selfish and selfless. Like, you have to have balance, but it's more, I'm not a chameleon. I can't just adapt and change per other people's standards. I have to have my own standard and then allow those who are meant to be in my life to attract to those standards, I guess. If I know that I want a long-term relationship, I am not going to be dealing with somebody that is like, I'm just going with the flow. You know what I'm That is me pouring into an empty cup. That is me, or pouring from an empty cup. That is also me not aligning myself with my own values, trying to fit somebody else, mold. And I think a lot of times men and women especially can get caught up in that. And it's putting a damper on the way that we're dating. Now, I did emphasize that women have a tendency to do this just because we are nurturers. Now, we want to be able to give, and it takes a lot of unlearning to give from a place. I just want to support you. I want to be there, and not from a like need. Like, I need to give in order to feel needed or appreciated. So it brings me to decentering men, because that is also in the title of this episode. What is decentering men, guys? I get a lot of slack, I feel like, and what I'm coming to learn from men who know me. Cause I am strict, okay? I am a Black feminist. I love and adore women down. But I am also, at least to my knowledge, right? I am a heterosexual woman. I'm straight. So I love and adore men. Like, I truly do. It's nothing like a man. However, I've spent so much of my hyper focused, like, and being the woman of his dreams, or, you know, trying to fit a certain mold in order to attract certain types of men through whatever season or era of my life I was in. And at 27, I can confidently say that I've reached a point where, I guess, primary focus of my 20s. I don't want to say I don't need a boyfriend, or I don't want a boyfriend, or I'm not looking for a relationship. It's more so of this, I've accepted the fact that I can only control, and I can only allow people to be in my life that align with me, whether it's romantic or friendship or familial even, right? So in that, I can't keep sacrificing in order to make things work with people that just no longer align with me, right? My purpose on this earth is not to solely be a wife, to solely be a mother. There are so many other things that I have done and that I am constantly doing on a regular basis, even right now, right? Who's to say that if I was a wife or a mother right now that I would be able to even do this video? There are so many other things to, you know, work towards and be in this life, that being a wife and a mother to a man that isn't meeting or aligning with me is no longer my primary, like, focus or goal. And don't get me wrong, when I was a kid, playing house, you know, alone, having my baby dolls, having a kitchen, having all these are things that, like, I grew up understanding and knowing. A mommy does this, a wife does that, XY. However, it's just gotten to a point where it's no longer my primary focus. It happens, but it's just, I'm not going to do all the mental gymnastics or jump through all the hoops to make it happen. I'm okay with that. There's so much, like, success in other things in my life that I'm thoroughly grateful for, that I'm able to keep constantly growing into and, like, pouring into. It's okay. And I think as women, when we take that pressure off of ourselves, you can feel the difference in how you navigate dating and life overall. Because just because you decenter men doesn't mean that you don't date. It just means that you date differently. You date with you at the forefront, with you being the primary. Hey, this man is no longer meeting my needs. And I believe that men should also do the same. Being a husband and being a provider are not the only two things that you can, you know, ascribe to in this life. Like, there are so many other things. Being a good friend, being being understanding. There are so many other things that you can work towards being and be proud of that have nothing to do with being a husband, or a father. And I think we have to take a little bit of that pressure off of ourselves. And that leads me into this idea of soft life. I think we overuse a lot of buzzwords, especially once they start getting popular. And you are responsible for giving yourself a soft life. That might be a hot take, but you are responsible for giving yourself a soft life. You truly are. Men and women, okay? How can I expect somebody to give me a soft when I'm not even soft with my, right? Men and women. How can I expect somebody to want to wake up and cook me breakfast when I don't even do that for my... You are responsible for that. Because once you start providing yourself a soft life, you will not deal with anybody or anything. You meet that, period. And that's all I'm going to say. Because I don't want to ruffle too many feathers, and I also don't want to make this longer than it needs to be. So some questions to after this episode, and they'll also be in the description. Are Black women and men given the tools to date each other successfully? I personally would say no. And that is something that I can dive deeper into in another episode. There's a reason why I say that. And even this episode just highlights there's obviously a disconnect between Black men and women. We know this, right? It's nothing new. But I would love to hear your thoughts, your opinions. I want this to be more interactive, more engaging. And I'll close off by saying, you have to do what works for you, okay? The moment something stops making sense to you is the opportunity for you to just leave. You gotta go. You have to let it make sense to you. It doesn't have to make sense to anybody else but you. Okay? And I'm gonna speak to black women directly when I'm saying this because, again, I am not a man, right? You have, once it stops making sense, you have to be the person that gets up and walks away. Truly. And it's hard, but it is doable. And it's so important in dating. It is not your responsibility to try to stick it out, considering the circumstances, of course. But once again, if you are childless and unmarried and you are just out here playing, girl, on to the next. It doesn't make sense to me anymore. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone but you. Period. That's it. That's all. Thank y'all for tuning in to this episode of Unpacked Sessions. Again, make sure you all click the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe, and I will see you all in the next episode. Bye.